No, it needs to be front and center, and it's
Yeah.
going to be uncomfortable for a little while, but it's what we need to do to heal from those wounds.
Let's do it. We're back with the Foolish Optimist Podcast. I'm your host, Amy McDonald. You know who I am. If you're new here and you're not following wherever you get your podcasts, please go ahead and hit that follow button. You know we're on the hunt for the next generation of leaders here in the United States. And so excited to announce our guest today. Our guest today is running in New Jersey's 7th Congressional District. Her name is Valentina Mendoza. She's a trans Chicana neurodivergent attorney from a working class family who has survived addiction, abuse, financial insecurity, and every kind of institutional gatekeeping you can possibly imagine. And now that she's found stability and success, she feels a responsibility to pass it on so that people coming behind her don't have to learn the hard way like she did. She's been a Wall Street attorney, in-house counsel, a founder, a relentless question asker in every room she's ever walked into. And she's seen how the system runs, who it protects and who it ignores, and who is expected, quote, just deal with it. She's running because we can do better. People deserve leaders who tell the truth, fight for working families, and who aren't afraid to shake up systems that have stopped serving us a long time ago. Valentina, thank you for being here.
Hi, Amy.
Hi.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to have you. We start this podcast the way we always do. Why are you running in 2026? What spurred this time around?
I got really bored in 2025. No, I'm just kidding. There was a great deal of frustration that I think the collective has felt for quite some time. And when I say the collective, I really do mean most Americans. When you speak to most Americans, you feel sort of a disillusionment and an apathy towards politics generally. And it comes in what I attribute it to is a great deal of disillusionment with what the candidates are and what policies are put forth, what the party's role in all of this is. And I think the only way to move away from that is to start seeing people who don't fit these perfect little boxes that were prescribed as what candidates should be, and start actually speaking from lived experience. And with that comes individuals like myself that have such intersectional different backgrounds, have difficulties that they've struggled with, but also have overcome, and have gone to a point in their life where they can share that knowledge, and they have the pedigree and the experience as far as what they're capable of and what they've accomplished to really enact meaningful change, coming from a place of, I've lived those problems with you. I'm now going to help to fix them, rather than sitting atop Mount Olympus and prescribing solutions that don't work. So that, for someone like myself, I'm a very visibly progressive person, partially because of my identity and what is assumed there. But the reason I own that and lead with that is because it comes with a great deal of information as to what most of the struggles are that a lot of Americans face in a very compact, unique, exaggerated form for individuals like myself. Because the trans community, specifically brown and Black trans people, get the brunt of it in a lot of ways, especially in this political climate. I think it's important that we start seeing people like me stand up there and show a different faith other than like this victimized version that we're always branded as. Like, we are smart, strong, incredibly talented individuals who often face a lot of hardship, but also make beautiful things happen. And it's time we start seeing voices like mine.
I love that. I think you're absolutely right. I think no one is more frustrated than the American people right now. We have been told how to feel. We've been told what's actually wrong by so many people who are like, have had an assistant since before I was alive, and they have no idea what like real American people's lives look like. And so that's so exciting. Yeah, I was reading news about you. If you're elected, you're the first trans person from New Jersey, right? At this level?
Yeah, more so than that. I'd be the first LGBT person in this state elected to Congress, which is nuts. Like, considering it's 2025 currently, we're running in 2026. We're a quarter century into the new millennium. And the best we can do is someone that is maybe slightly centrist It's not good enough anymore. And I think we're sick of it.
I'm right there with you. I've been screaming about this constantly. It's like, I don't want a moderate milquetoast white Jesus to come save us. We don't need that. We need people who look like us, who have lived things like us, and who have actually experienced the world as it is. And the Democratic Party nationally consistently is like, you know what, let's run this moderate white man yet again. And I just get I'm like, another one? I'm like, my eye is twitching. I'm like, there's so many great people like yourself and so many other candidates who have, again, you nailed it with your introduction, right? You have the pedigree, you have the experience, and you have the wherewithal to actually speak on it and be at the table where laws are being written about your communities and marginalized communities. And when we have people, we have the representation, all of a sudden laws get a little better because they make sense.
Yeah, you've got skin in the game. Like, you're in a room talking about issues that will directly impact you and your community, and you can speak from lived experience. The policies will have a little more common sense embedded into them and a great deal more empathy because they actually impact your life. So it's time we stop looking at our differences in that way as sort of like a disqualifier when really they're the qualifiers.
That's exactly right. So many bills that I read, I'm like, oh, you never spoken to somebody. Like, my background is in real estate, and one of the ways I got involved again in politics later in my life was arguing real estate laws in New York City. And I was like, you wrote this law without talking to anybody who A, lived this, B, has worked in this industry, or C, knows anything about it. And not to dig on lawyers, I know you're an attorney, but a lot of lawyers think they're smarter than people who have experience in the industry that they're writing bills about. And I got really angry. I was like, don't try to lawyer me.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of politicians like borrow from that ethos because lawyers can absolutely be guilty of sort of living in this bubble where everything that we do is incredibly sophisticated and complicated and a layperson couldn't possibly understand. In reality, like the things that you are governing and trying to adjust or apply are real life circumstances. And politicians live in this bubble where the issues that they see are those that seem most palatable in a lot of ways because they're looking at a path towards electability, and it misses an entire portion of the population who is struggling so much more deeply than not being able to afford a house in the most affluent area of town. Like, right. I'm not worried about you. This is a very diverse district. It is painted as a very affluent one, but the median is skewed quite heavily because of some of the affluence. I'm worried about the people that can make ends meet day to day and not just paycheck to paycheck, because the reality is most Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, even those with a healthier income. But I'm worried about those that really have no idea where their next meal is coming from, because right. There is an abundance of them in this district that we forget because, again, we run towards the middle or what's perceived to be.
Well, and at this point, of course, what is the middle? People are like, oh, I'm middle of the road. And I'm like, what fucking road are you on, babe? I don't know. Yeah. Like, what do you mean? No, I'm with you. I'm like much further left than where we've been in the past. And when we talk about this issue of electability, that's where we get this like moderation from, because, and I think we've proven it wrong in 8,000 different ways just in the last month, right? Obviously, New York City elected a Democratic Socialist, but also some of these parts of the country, like Idaho, had Christian nationalists lose in November, which is unfortunately a first for them in a while, which is great. You know, we're moving left. Mississippi electability looks different in every part of the country. And so for your district specifically, maybe we can talk a little bit about that diversity, whether that's income diversity or even just demographic makeup. What is your district looking like, and what are some of those issues hitting District 7 right now?
What I think is incredible about this particular district is, unfortunately, as a product of gerrymandering, what has happened is that the district sort of spans such a large geography where you've got an area like my own that belongs to a certain county that is very close to New York City, with a lot of people here either commuting into the city for work, having lived there in some part, and then come out to like the suburbs to sort of like settle down or whatever you might call it. The thing that creates is there are some very liberal pockets in this area. You add to that it essentially borders Pennsylvania the further west you go, and it gets incredibly rural. There are some areas that don't have the infrastructure for reliable internet, or there are farms. There's such a difference in the way people live their lives day to day through this district that I think it's a really beautiful picture of a small snapshot of what a swing district in this country really does look like, because you will get into deep MAGA territory just driving through this district. And you will also, have crosswalks that have pride flags painted on them. And that doesn't feel strange. It just feels like these are my neighbors.
Right.
But I think that we forget in running the race that we do, because historically this has been somewhat of a swing district, and it leans somewhat red according to prior numbers and actual turnout. A lot of the population here, almost a third, either is independent or registered and doesn't engage. So there's a whole pool of voters that feels forgotten. That's who I'm looking to. I'm not focused entirely on the individuals who religiously show up because their issues are taken care of. That has been the dialogue for the past 2 centuries, almost 3 centuries.
Right.
We're ready to talk about those most marginalized. And I'm concerned that by running preemptively on a platform that hedges your values so drastically that you're focused on electability from day one, you water down the discourse and you automatically exclude these people from the conversation. I think it's incumbent on elected officials to be taking controversial positions and really pushing the boundaries of what that dialogue is on behalf of those communities specifically, because they are the ones that have the least say in what goes on day to day. And that's why I do lead in my introductions as I'm someone who has survived, income instability. I'm somebody who has survived addiction. I'm somebody who has survived various forms of assault, because those people frequently don't see themselves in elected officials because they're too sensitive topics to bring up and they're too controversial for anyone to address. But the reality, in some way, shape, or form, addiction, for example, almost half of all Americans in some way, shape, or form have been touched by addiction, whether that be a family member, have struggled with it personally, whatever you want to put on it. For half of this country to be dealing with that is nuts that it doesn't take a more visible platform, specifically from individuals who have struggled with the illness. So all that to say that when I look at the spread in this community, I see what most individuals are inclined to do. And I was seeing that in the candidate pool, specifically for this seat. And I said, the most liberal one out of the bunch compared to me, if I'm not mistaken, has described themselves as a slightly left centrist. It's not good enough, because when the compromises get made, who gets thrown under the bus? Individuals like myself. Why? Because they're not in the room.
Right. I love everything you just said. And it's realistically, this is a conversation that we don't have enough on the left, no matter what part of the left you fit into, is that like when we're talking about our most marginalized communities and we bring up the most marginalized communities, everyone else rises. Like, rising tides brings all, but like it is so normalized that it's a catchphrase. It's an idiom in the English language. Like, because it's real and it's not one of those ones that's like a joke or what have you. It's so impressive to me. And I, as a former addict myself, I greatly appreciate you talking about this. And addiction is so different for so many different people, and so many people use it to cope with the fact that we don't have a society built for them. We don't have a society that is working for them. And some people do it with full-time jobs. Some people you would never know. And that's the thing that irks me the most. And that's, people are like, why are you so crazy about justice? And I'm like, because I've gone through things that nobody saw. And so I gave money to someone once, and my coworker was like, I've seen her do drugs. She was like, an unhoused person. And I was like, I did drugs with you last night. What do you mean? Oh, okay. I was like, you, cutie pie, you spend one night on the streets and you tell me you're not doing drugs.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, people are uncomfortable with seeing it in its most extreme form, but the reality is you're a hop, skip, and a jump from a bad experience and ending up in a very similar circumstance. Because the vast majority of us, as I mentioned before, do live paycheck to paycheck.
Yes.
Even if it's a healthy one, you're spending every dime And that job can be gone overnight, and your habits and your coping mechanisms are what they are. One wrong move, and that's how you end up. And it is unfortunate that we view individuals in experiencing such extreme forms of hardship with such judgmental eyes, because you're right. And it really touched me when you mentioned that you're using it as a coping mechanism to deal with a society that isn't built with you. Because for the vast majority of people, the sad truth is that it is oftentimes the only thing that is keeping you alive in some ways. And it's a weird way to look at it. But you don't get it unless you've been there, because as someone who had to stifle who they were for so long, I felt suffocated by life. And the only escape that I had was chemically induced euphoria.
Yeah.
And it was what kept me alive for a long period of time, albeit me trying to slowly kill myself. So had I just been able to be myself, maybe all of that could have been avoided. But that's my responsibility now. Like, push so that that doesn't happen to someone else. And it is happening again in more extreme ways with such controversy around accessing gender affirming care, specifically for minors.
So my mother is an educator. She has her PhD in curriculum and instruction, and she teaches teachers. And I just think about these teachers who a kid says, "Hey, will you call me by a different name?" And they say, "Of course." Like, that's what, like, for a lot of minors, when we're talking about life-saving gender affirmations, that's enough. I mean, just having one person recognize you as who you feel you are deep in your bones. I mean, we all have that teacher who, like, saw us, most of us do. We have, like, one teacher who saw us, and you're like, that is life-saving, because fucking middle school and high school are hard enough as it is. Like,
oh, totally. Especially for, like, the little closeted queer kids.
Yes.
Like, how does your heart not go out to them? Like, I get it. When you were little, they were the weird one. You didn't want to hang out with them because they felt a little different. And, like, we all lived that. And I was there, and I was the weird one that people didn't want to talk to. But the reality is, as an adult looking down, how could you not look at the ones that are marginalized and have some empathy towards them and curiosity as to what they're experiencing? As opposed to, like, well, you don't fit in. It's like, all it takes is this much effort for you to acknowledge that child and make them feel included and watch them blossom. Because every time someone does it, and I've seen someone acknowledge a child in that way, they light up in such an empowering, beautiful way where it's like, that is the autonomy and the courage that you're going to need in life to make a mark. You're gonna need to put yourself out there in a way that feels authentic and makes you shine.
Yeah.
Why is it only okay for cishet kids?
Well, and we talk about, there's obviously this very varying degree of how we're talking about queer children and indoctrination. And again, my mom's an educator, and she's like, indoctrination? I can't get kids to put their names on paper. What do you mean? What, like, all of her student teachers are like, we're struggling with the date. We're struggling with the date. When I have no time to indoctrinate anyone, but we indoctrinate kids on the cishet side of the spectrum all the time, like, heartbreaker and all these things. And it's like, we talk about the kids like they're some abstract thing. The kids are the future of our country. Every child is the future of our country. So fucking, like, buck up and let them be themselves, man.
It's like, think back to when you were a child. I specifically will think back to myself. And sure, the steps that I've taken to publicly adjust who I am to fit who I've always felt inside have manifested later in life for me.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, day one as a child, like, there was no question in my mind. There was no reason why I should be treated any differently than any other girl, because I felt like I was a girl. My body was changing in certain ways. It didn't align with who I was. It caused me a lot of discomfort. But the reality is, I knew that. And what's funny is that it didn't feel oppressive in any real way until adulthood, because for young children specifically, you can avoid a lot of these circumstances by being withdrawn and by just clinging to your mother. So, like, you will get pulled into rooms where women typically are, because I just became a total, like, just barnacle on my mother.
A little extension. Literally, it's an extension of mama. Yeah, exactly.
And it was just like, okay, well, that little kid just really loved their mom, and, like, no one questions it. And it's like, well, no, I get to do all the girl stuff when I'm with mom.
Like, also, I love my mom, but also
Yeah.
I want to be in the room because this makes me happy and it brings my little soul joy. Obviously, when we were, I don't know how old you are, but like I'm classic millennial, born in 1990, right? And we went through a phase as young people where the gay kids were ostracized, right? And now, as parents, my generation of parents are like, my kid came out to me. I've known they were gay since they were 4. I knew they were gay 8 years before they told me, but obviously I feel really happy that they were comfortable to tell me and things like that. And I do think eventually we will get there as a society with trans kids as well. I hate that it's young trans people and young trans people of color who bear the brunt of this. It's driving me a little batty, if I'm being honest, because we know historically, we know from historical stories, we know from data, empirical data, anecdotal data, that trans people, two-spirit people have always existed. Like, we just know.
It's old news.
It's literally like, and
It's
back in like the
literally old
70s
news.
and 80s, we didn't give a shit. Like, I think about that. I think it was a World War II vet who transitioned, who went on like the Carson show or like, one of these like big, massive Tonight shows. And it wasn't even a question. It was a very pleasant interview about their life as a World War II veteran and what life was like for them coming home. And it's the culture war around it is frustrating to me because trans people also need good infrastructure. They also need good education. They also need all these, they need to be paid for their work.
No one's asking for anything special. It is what it really boils down to. It's like my struggle is several steps behind what is baseline for most individuals. And that's what I feel is such a beautiful expression of what those struggles are in a very specific context. Because you take healthcare, for example, and for an individual like myself, the fact that I am a practicing attorney is the reason why I got traction when I faced those difficulties. Because learning about how complicated the law is in this space is difficult enough. Add to it the fact that you have legal pressure, corporate pressure behind what those decisions might be. If I wasn't who I was, I would not have had the success that I had in pushing for meaningful reform at a prior employer. The scenario that I give is for individuals, anybody that needs access to any sort of ongoing or advanced care, there are processes set up that oftentimes require numerous levels of appeal, documentation. Typically, your doctor takes care of some of this. However, you do need some sort of baseline competency with what the process is and how to navigate it, because having certain things up front makes your life a lot easier and drastically increases your chance of success months down the line when the appeals process gets going, and knowing where to push. So when I was at this prior employer, it was a large retailer. We were working on figuring out where these gaps were because there was nothing in place when I arrived. Suddenly there's a transgender lawyer making noise about like, hey, all of this stuff is missing. How do we fix it? And it was their worst nightmare because I didn't know that a few years prior, they had gone through an entire exercise to craft a process to exclude individuals from receiving access at all, specifically because it was expensive, according to them. And they didn't want to be the one place where all these trans people run to get whatever they need with like carte blanche. Yeah, no, and I'm not exaggerating. These are the conversations that I had.
And it doesn't surprise me. I'm just like,
yeah, like the hordes of trans people. We are less than 1% of the population, like, and less than that seeks coverage. But, let's address that separately at some point. So they had changed the policies such that if you didn't get into the minutia of analyzing how each word impacts what your coverage levels are, you would just sort of take it as a given that it's not part of the coverage plan. But in understanding my rights, understanding what the difference is between sex and gender and how those definitions are used, how they were applied to the type of care that I was receiving, I was able to push back in a way that was pretty clear in that, look, I'm guaranteed these things. You happen to be exempt from a lot of requirements under the type of insurance plan that you have because you are a national retailer that is self-insured under ERISA, which is a large law that most big employers will be self-insured because they reap the benefits of the insurance plan of the savings. You're now in a paradigm where, the individuals making decisions about your care aren't even the insurance companies in some contexts. This is your employer. This is the board and senior management choosing coverage levels for its employees. And then you having to go to these people, myself in this instance, and argue about why some of those decisions were wrong, if not illegal. It created such a fucking mess. It was nuts. Like the amount of tension and problems that arose. I went from a star employee to persona non grata overnight because now I was like a lawyer with a potential claim for discrimination. Who knows what she's talking about? We spent the better part of a year.
Problems. Yeah.
Of course. And here comes, the performance improvement plan. And here comes like all the weird practices and the hypervigilance about like whatever you're doing day to day and give me written summaries. And it literally went from like negotiating multi-million-dollar deals on my own to like, you cannot move without looking, like without getting permission from me. But all that to say, we were up against 4 different companies, the insurance network, the insurance provider, these like intermediaries called like concierges or medical benefit coordinators, which are literally just customer service, but they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, total. No disrespect to anybody doing that job. This is what you're fed from your employers to then exclude people.
Yeah.
And what was happening is that rather than giving anybody access to the actual appeals process, they just wouldn't book the appointments. They just wouldn't let if a doctor called for coverage, they would tell them it's not included. The denial never went on the books. It's gone. It doesn't exist. All you have is somebody who is complaining, and there was a phone call that you can neither have received or not received. So fought for the better part of a year. All that to say, by the end of it, I did successfully get coverage, but the company that I was working for, it took so long, they filed for bankruptcy. Since they were self-insured, the insurance plan disappeared. So I've got the approval, but imagine somebody, ignore the fact that this was in the context of a transgender individual seeking certain coverage. My illness is not one where I need that immediately or I will physically pass away.
Right.
But what if somebody with sickle cell anemia?
Literally. Thank God. I mean,
not to minimize it, but the reality is like I can choose when these things happen and my body will not decompose or something. Like I'm not going to just drift away. But think of somebody with sickle cell anemia or diabetes navigating this exact process because it is the exact same process.
Right.
Different provisions apply, but it is the same process. To have those levels of denial and have taken a year to get an answer.
Literally pass away.
And people do. And that's the frustration people feel.
Yeah.
So this struggle about transgender access to healthcare, sure, differ on what you believe individuals should live their lives like and what access they should have. That is your opinion and you're entitled to it. But the reality is there is peer-reviewed, academic, authoritative information that establishes the need for this type of care. You don't get to negate that.
Right.
But what you see is those same battles will create barriers for everybody else who we already agree about. And that is, to me, the danger in focusing on a group of individuals that is unpalatable for most because the various preconceived notions about what this care might be. But by enabling that, you allow those in power to use those paradigms to oppress others. And those are the ripple effects that you see.
Well, and this is what happens every single time we try to create a system where we can cut out any sort of community. Whenever we try to cut out any sort of marginalized community, whether that is racial demographics or sexual orientation or transgender or not, or even women, all of a sudden we fucking cut out other people that need what they need. And that's literally why we're in the position we're in right now, right? Because for all of the eternity in the United States, we have tried to limit what marginalized communities get. Minorities, women, LGBTQ+, immigrants. And now, all of a sudden, almost every single American feels it in some form or fashion, whether it's healthcare, whether it's housing, whether it's economic. This is the thing that really irks me is because a lot of white Americans, cishet white Americans don't feel it, but they're starting to, and they don't understand what it is. And I'm like, it's a system designed to keep minorities out in some form or fashion, and now you're feeling it.
The reason an individual Oh no, they're just to move to the next topic. But I think what really encapsulates it is exactly what you said. It's like, why is a group that feels excluded from that level of oppression feeling the same level of harm? And it's because the same mechanisms that a certain particular kind of man who happens to seek elected office continuously imposes on marginalized communities are then used to deprive you of your access to reproductive health care or preventative health care or any type of abortions or whatever you think of, contraception access, like you name it. It's the exact same mechanisms used time and time again. So when you agree to deprive one group of it, we have to remember that that same thing can be used to deprive another group of it. It's about equality across the board.
Yeah. We don't really talk about equality of access enough, I think, in this country. I think that's something that like irks me because so many people think that because they can go get something, whether maybe that's an abortion, they can fly across state lines. Can't everyone? No. What the?
Exactly.
Of course not.
Yeah. It's what my frustration is. Yes. That alone, or like it just even the idea of being able to, like the fact that it is possible for somebody to even conceive of that is something that is so foreign for individuals who don't have access, because like they will not even go there. It's just, my doctor says, no, I can't.
Right.
And like, what am I doing? Like there's a clock ticking, you run out the clock and people, end up in situations that they could have avoided. And whatever your opinion might be on that, it's the same lack of access. That's why I think a lot of the agenda that we saw this past November with the local elections here just didn't do justice. I was very purposeful in saving my opinion until after the election, because I'm not ignorant to what was at play. I'm not ignorant to the circumstances that we live in. And I understand that me being vocal and authentic about the positions that I would take could impact another's chances. Now that that's over, the best I could have done was to keep my mouth silent, because the frustration I felt was so profound. I could not vocally support other candidates who were not going as far. And it's this point you're making about access. When we talk about affordability, when we talk about electricity prices skyrocketing, we don't talk about it in enough context, and it doesn't go far enough to really address those that are living with it day to day in its most extreme forms. And that to me is the disservice that centrist candidates do in running on a democratic platform, because realistically, it is much more of a far right platform globally, if you put it into context, than it is any form of leftist platform. Most of the world looks at us as an authoritarian far right form of government. And they're right to, because we water ourselves down before we even get into the room.
Yeah. Well, and so my degree, which I have 9 years in my sales career, my degree is in international affairs, specifically between the United States, Great Britain, and France. And I mean, we call this our right party, this is our left party. I mean, we are so similar. We've got little differences. And other countries look at us as A, a baby country. We're like a teenager going through its rebellious years. B, so far right that like the left is a joke, which in my opinion right now kind of is. We are desperate for good left leaders, like real, true left leaders, not moderate centrists. Again, my new phrase that I love that I'm going to peddle to everyone is milquetoast by Jesus. We don't need that. We need people who will stand up for the most marginalized. And we've seen that it works. Not only does it work from, like, I try to argue with people on empathy, and a lot of people don't have it. So I turn to numbers. I'm like, mathematically, it is cheaper for us to eradicate homelessness.
Oh, totally. A billionaire could do it in a snap.
It's literally $20 to $30 billion one-time payment, and our chronically homeless people will be housed. They will.
Yeah, pony up, Elon. Pony up. Like, come on.
Yeah, you want to save the world. Save it or leave it, man.
I don't need a car that can drive itself. I need every child fed.
Literally, I'm like, beat the kids or get off the earth. Like, fix the earth and leave. We don't, go explore the Mariana Trench. I don't care. Just get out of my face. But like, and then from once we house the unhoused people, you know what they do? Put money back into our economy. They go get jobs. They go do things. They create art. They do Like,
Yeah.
at
So,
some point, I'm like, I can't argue with you on empathy because you have none. So I'll argue with you
yeah.
on the economics of it.
Well, when you look at it that way, something I lead with, and you'll notice this throughout the rest of this campaign, is I tend to lead with the controversy and then follow up with details. And partially is because of the fact that like we need something to sort of shock us into paying attention, because what you're getting is a plethora of candidates that are like, I'm, the All-American this, and I'm the All-American that, and I'm like homegrown this and corn-fed that. And you space out the moment you start hearing it because you've heard it so many times.
Right.
So when I talk about affordability, is it an important aspect of the platform that I'm running on? Absolutely. I talk about it in the context of economic justice. Because really, if you don't go far enough with repairing some of the harms that this country has done to specific communities, you cannot speak to the affordability crisis beyond a rich person in a certain area not being able to afford their dream home. Again, not concerned with it. When I talk about economic justice, I talk about it in the context of reparations. Am I looking to give handouts to specific individuals? No, nobody is. What I'm looking to do is take the SBA beyond what it currently is doing, the Small Business Administration, and have it focus on micro businesses within underserved communities that have been chronically plagued by oppression. I want to fund those businesses, and it doesn't have to be the next generative AI platform that gets the right amount of funding. It can be a local baker. It can be a pharmacy. It can be a mechanic, whatever it is that your community needs. Let's start displacing these giant conglomerates that provide these services and have killed local economies by funding individuals in these areas to build businesses that will sustain them. Do they have to be businesses that become multi-billion-dollar enterprises? No, they just have to sustain that family and give them jobs and resources. And now you've got kids living in homes that have parents that have their own businesses that then aspire to do the same. You've got economic mobility. You've got dollars circulating within local economies, within groups who are normally excluded from employment opportunities. So when I talk about reparations, I don't just mean for specific groups. I mean for people who have been harmed by oppressive structures in this country. And I mean as a form of mobility that provides not only funding, but the skill set to then sustain that and revitalize local economies. Nobody talks about that to that degree. Not one of my opponents has ever gone that far. What they talk about is your electric bill is too high. And even there, they could go further and discuss the data centers that are popping up to prop up artificial intelligence, which again does not get addressed. But sure, we're all worried about our super expensive electric bill, and that does suck and it hurts. But again, you never go far enough with centrist candidates.
Well, and you've now said like 5 of my favorite words, which are reparations, local economies. That's 3. And we have to talk about data centers. We have to talk about data centers.
Oh my God.
Every fucking breath that we talk about. But reparations as a way to rebuild these local economies is one of the things that I like have had in my mind for years, but I like stand so much firmly more in those beliefs as I've learned more about the last like 45 years in our country and how these local economies were decimated by corporations getting into politics. Like that's, you want to make America great again. You want to go back to any sort of time where it was physically possible for individuals to have one home on one salary or any just options in terms of economic mobility. It starts with local economies, and we have to. I've been talking about reparations a lot lately, and people are like, why right now? And I'm like, because fascism will fall and we get to rebuild. It's our job to rebuild. And if we don't have a fucking plan, then I don't know what the fuck we're doing here. And reparations is step 1. You know, like communities have been bombed, and we're talking about like almost in my lifetime, you know, in my parents' marriage, 45 years, communities in the United States have been bombed by the U.S. government. They deserve reparation. They're like, what the fuck?
We need to heal from that. And unless we acknowledge it and actually engage with that tension instead of writing it off, that's the only way we're moving through it. And that does require certain individuals with privilege to acknowledge the fact that there has been wrongdoing by the collective. You are not personally accountable for it directly, but you reap the benefits. And with that acknowledgement and allocation of resources to then back that acknowledgement, that is how you can start to move past it. Not just these superficial, I see no color platforms and like, well, why are you running on such a controversial like identity? You should just sort of water it down so that it rides the coattails of other things. No, it needs to be front and center, and it's going to be uncomfortable for a little while, but it's what we need to do to heal from those wounds.
I mean, I literally have gotten to a point where it is, in my mind, if you're not talking about race and you're a white person, that's racist to me, frankly. Like if you're doing the I see no color, I blah, blah. Yeah, you do. You fucking do. You were born white in the United States. You have to. If you don't, then you're an alien and you're not from this earth. Because like truly, okay, Superman. All right. Didn't know you walked among us. Like it is just the way that this country has wired us, and we have to have those hard conversations, but we don't like being uncomfortable. Step it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, well, if your politicians are nothing but feel good vibes and kumbaya, then you don't have anybody advocating for the discomfort that people are feeling. I know that I can come off as very passionate and very forward, and it can be somewhat uncomfortable for some people. I had another meeting with a local grassroots organization, and you can see their faces and the interview and like some of their reactions. And I don't blame them for feeling uncomfortable about it, but they have to understand that like, this is 10 minutes of your day. And because of the life that you live, you get 10 minutes of discomfort. I live it day to day. Like I go to the grocery store and I get these looks and I get this pushback and I get followed around the supermarket because I look this way now. And mind you, like I am a licensed attorney. Right. I don't look it in a lot of ways because I've got tattoos and like I'm a tall transgender woman. So like there are a lot of preconceived ideas as to what my presence might mean for certain retailers, and I will get tailed. And it is the strangest thing because it's just like, if you just took a moment to like have a conversation with somebody and get to know them, most of this would fall away. Right. And those preconceived ideas of what somebody is would disappear, because the vast majority of individuals that do live the life that I live, you probably don't know that they do, because individuals like myself are an integral part of society. You just see the ones that are most extreme manifestations of the negative qualities that are flagged in your mind as what is memorable. And that to me is very telling of what the experience is for people that don't live day-to-day oppression, because it's like, oh, this is uncomfortable. That's what I'm living.
Right. One of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten working in sales was get comfortable being uncomfortable. Right. Mm-hmm. You have to like know when to be silent, and like silence for a lot of people is uncomfortable and things like that. And like, also I was working in real estate. So like weird shit happened all the time. Like I had a doorman give me keys to a house that wasn't for sale, and I walked in on a family eating dinner. Like, you know, it's like crazy shit happened. And I think it has like really served me well just in the world. And I think a lot of other people need to think about that, because we live the United States. The reason we're in the position we're in is so many of the people of the society of the United States were comfortable. They weren't spurred to action because of uncomfort. And part of this like lack of empathy that I see, obviously it's generations of democracy, but the lack of empathy is killing me. Like, oh, you're not uncomfortable right now, therefore you feel like you don't need to take action. Your neighbor's uncomfortable. Your mother is uncomfortable. Your fucking child is uncomfortable. And you don't think you need to take action yet?
And the solution tends to be, well, you need to do exactly what I'm doing to be happy. And that is like, fit in this little box. And if you fit in this little box, life will be wonderful. But the moment you step out of it, well, the discomfort's your problem, because that's what you did. So, and it's like, we need to get to a point where we understand that people live very different lives. And that is exactly what we are intended to do and be, is completely distinct from one another. Yeah. And I don't need you to approve. Frankly, I'm not even seeking tolerance anymore. I am demanding respect, because we are at a stage where enough is enough. Yeah. I am here. I am entitled to the same liberties and freedoms. And I was raised to believe that this was a land where anything was possible for anybody. That included me. I am living proof of what an immigrant's child can accomplish in this country. It is not without sacrifice and difficulty on all parts, but I'm looking for this country to make good on that promise. And I'm hoping that if elected, I am able to help it make good on that promise for everybody, not just a select group of people.
I think that's like part of why, as a collective, like younger Gen X, older Gen Z, and millennials are feared, because we bought into the lie that the United States is a place that every single person can do whatever the fuck they want. And you can't tell me otherwise. Ha, sorry. Literally, people are like, well, this group of people don't deserve rights. And I'm like, well, you just said they're a group of people, and people deserve rights. And we live in a country where people deserve rights. And I think that's why, like, millennials are a little bit... I'm so glad we're having this conversation today. I really am.
Me too.
I made a video earlier today around my 20s where I was like trying to shove myself into a box. My experience is very different than yours, my life experiences, but I was trying to be someone I wasn't, and it almost fucking killed me, and that's where I leaned into addiction, and that's where I leaned into like harmful activities. And as soon as I started to be myself, as soon as I started to like remember who the fuck I was, things got better.
Yep.
Like, and it's been a journey and it's been whatever, but like, I think we all have that experience of trying to like shove ourselves into this box for other people's comfort. And you wake up one day and you're like, who the fuck am I? This is not who I am. This is not what I was supposed to do.
And it's an interesting thing to go through, because I feel like in a lot of ways, as an infant nation, we are at a point where a lot of what we've done has gotten us to a certain point, and we're, the biggest military in the world, largest economy by some measures. And that comes with a certain level of, I want to say pride. I won't say patriotism, because I think yes, exactly. Arrogance is really the word. And what I think that's done is that it helps us sort of like idolize a lot of the things that are very problematic in this country, that certain paradigms make sense because this is the success that it brought, when in reality, a lot of the success that has come is through novel, innovative ideas that have challenged prior norms, because that's what a certain group was craving, because they were different from another. This is the land of differences, in my opinion. This is a place where I've seen differences really thrive. The biggest contribution I've ever made is coming into a room and not drinking the Kool-Aid. Like, by pushing back every single time and questioning every assumption. It's laborious, it's annoying to some people, but that is usually where I make my mark, because I'm unwilling to accept something just because it's the way it's been done. And that is what we're seeing currently, where we have individuals in my race in particular, a congressional rep that is the current sitting member of Congress, that will do essentially exactly what their party prescribes. And good luck finding them doing anything other than that, else, or even having an opinion about anything that is not sent down from above. We're seeing the same thing with the other Democratic candidates, where an opponent of mine donated money to every other candidate, earmarked it for the general election, and essentially put out a press statement saying, I want to make this donation to show my commitment to the party, irrespective of which candidate wins. I will back whoever gets the nomination blindly, and that's that. And what did I do? Immediately refunded that money. One, because out of all those candidates, I think there's 7 or 8 at this point.
Yes. Yeah.
Only one of them will get the nomination. If you earmark that money for the general, what will happen if they lose the primary and close their race? They will refund that money. Right. So you're getting it back anyway. Right. And 2, I will not pledge blind entirely, but it made the news. So, bravo. Yeah. But that type of blind allegiance based on colors and party lines that are drawn prescriptively from above is exactly the reason we end up in the same situation cycle after cycle, because nobody has the grit to push back against major donors or anybody. I'm not accountable to any of these people. So when I make a decision about who to support, it will be based on their values and what I think they can accomplish.
Right.
And if it isn't me, you better believe it will be an informed decision that the people who have chosen to give me their support can lean into, as opposed to me just like blindly throwing money left and right because I have it. it was so gross. It was so incredibly gross that it just left such a bad taste in my mouth, on top of the fact that the establishment party in this area has essentially made it clear that I am not someone that they would support.
Right.
So that I've been essentially told I am too trans and too controversial and too progressive to really get backing. And to me, it's sort of an indicia of the fear that someone like me provokes, because you've got someone with honest opinions that doesn't owe us anything, that we can't now water down. What are we going to do? We're losing control.
Losing control. Like, they had control to begin with. So, I mean, what I've come to terms with is the fact that, like, MAGA has spawned out of the Republican Party, and at this point, we probably need a spawn of ourselves to go further left to combat them. I mean, truly, I'm thinking about, like, a scene in one of the movies where, like, the little alien, like, sets out. It's time. I mean, our Democratic National Party has been playing by an old book of rules that doesn't exist anymore. And, maybe in 2009, if they were treating the Tea Party the way that they're treating MAGA today, we would have been like, novel, great. But now it's been 15 years. And now you're like, I'm saying you're being like the Democratic National Party. You're showing up with a knife to a air quote knife fight where the other person has brought an AK-47 for 15 years. So now you're just stupid.
Yeah, it's weird at this point, because the same sort of playbook you can see the same playbook playing out time and time again each cycle. And what it is it turns the Democratic Party, the establishment, essentially, as like a ratchet for fascism, where all you do is consistently cater to them leaning further right into authoritarianism.
Right.
And you don't push back enough for there to be a counterbalance. And what we're missing is diversity in opinion, diversity in representation, to then push back on those things. Because yes, of course, it's going to seem like the most reasonable compromise to start, prohibiting individuals like myself to use certain restrooms, because who does that affect? Small group of people. It's controversial enough. It looks like a win, but it's empty. It's completely empty, because at the end of the day, it was never something they were going to back anyway.
Right.
Because it's just isn't palatable to go through the discussion and go through the effort to finally explain why those dynamics are so problematic and how they actually hurt women in all ways, not just trans women, but like cis women as well.
So
the
1,000 different ways
built into that. It's disgusting. And we're not willing to have those discussions and be uncomfortable, like you said. And it's time that we start seeing candidates that are willing to be.
Well, so my mom's an educator. She taught at a Catholic university. And I've had, since I was a wee child, like as soon as I got my periods, they were the worst thing that's ever happened to me. I went to the hospital, but the Catholic university didn't have to pay for birth control because they were a religious institution. And my mom went to them. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I would stop for a second. Okay. So my mom has her PhD, and she has taught most of her career prior to getting her PhD in curriculum and instruction in science, biology, or environmental science, things like that. And I remember when she went to her Catholic college to ask them to pay for my birth control, and they said, to a woman of science, they said, if we can prove she's a virgin, we'll pay for it. And my mom was like, prove? Like, from also like an elderly man saying, and my mom, like, so this is the type of accessibility that we're talking about. And when people can push back and ask questions around anyone getting anything, everyone is harmed. It drives, just like, to me, it's so simple. And it's really frustrating. One of the big questions I wanted to ask you was, what makes you different than all of your primary candidates? But I think we just spent about an hour talking about what makes you different than all of the primary candidates. So maybe we can begin to wrap up here, because I know you have a big primary pool, but you also are very busy. So can you tell everyone where you can be found and where they can support you?
Yeah. So currently I have a social media presence, and that's about it. My website's still being built. Because of the fact that I'm running a very different campaign in the sense that I don't want to run an establishment race where I'm vying for the most money possible to spend as quickly as possible to get your attention, to drown out the rest and like outspend my competition. I'm not winning that race if I run it. So I'm just opting out entirely. And what I'm doing instead is really engaging directly with voters and doing this as grassroots as possible. It's slow and it's painful, but that's the reality of what I think we need. We need real community and real connection. So I've got social media presence. All my handles, you can find me at VoteVale, VoteVale. Website will be VoteVale.com. It's currently under construction. But what I do want to plug and what's coming and what I've been spending most of my time doing is I think it's very important to be able to share my story, my background, my qualifications, as I'm referring to them as, because I'm running on a platform of lived experience, as authentically and fully as I can from the get-go. I've been writing in sort of autobiography that highlights a lot of these hardships and puts them into context into what the platform I'm building will be. I will be publishing that in a series of chapters over the next few months throughout the campaign trail. I was shooting for the end of October, but to really do it justice, I'm pushing it into early next year. And it will be available. The money will go directly to fund the campaign. Do not expect television ads to be on that money, at least initially. Don't expect any big spending. I am putting that money directly into grassroots activism. And that is how I intend to fundraise, because I'm not taking money from corporations. I'm not taking money from big donors. I want small contributions and real engagement to drive the campaign. So that is my value add, because I think it's incredibly weird for candidates to just be seeking money and just hand it over to consultants or big media. And that's the flow of your money. No, you will see direct correlation between how each dollar is spent. So I'm sharing my story. That's forthcoming. It's called The Curriculum of Hardship, because that is my education.
Yes. It's beautiful.
I'm hoping to put it out in January, and then I'll have a cadence coming out, so everybody can look forward to that. But all the salacious details about my life, any sort of controversy that could be drummed up, it's going in that book. So if you want the inside scoop from the get-go, that's where you'll find it.
Hell yeah. I kind of love that. What if we required politicians to drop an autobiography before? Honestly, why not? Why not? You learn exactly what their life was like. You learn exactly where they're coming from and who they are.
I'm asking for such a profound level of trust from people. For me to jump out the gate and base that on preconceived notions of what my identity is feels so presumptuous and arrogant that it's disingenuous for me to go about it that way. You get all of it. You get every single struggle I've had. You get all the problems I've lived through, any controversy you can think of. And of course, as a transgender woman of color, it's going to be salacious. There's a lot I've been through, but you are entitled to that information about me, because what I'm seeking to do is govern based on that experience. So I completely agree. We should know everything there is to know about elected officials before casting that vote. Not while you're in office.
Yeah.
But when you're in office, it's too late. I already trusted you.
Right. Now I feel like you pulled the wool over my eyes. And of course, this trust between politicians and constituents is something that will take generations to fucking repair, because we've all been lied to so many times. And part of this is exactly the issue you're talking about, right? Is taking this corporate money and shuffling it all around. And I'm like, well, who's going to knock on your fucking door? Is it Exxon? Is it, I don't know. I mean, I do.
Yep.
We are recording this the weekend after the Thanksgiving holiday. And I will say the Macy's Day Parade gave me a little bit of hope in corporations. There was just so much. It was so much diversity, so much a real picture of the American story, which is Indigenous, which is Black, which is immigrant based, which it's just, I was like, Santa Claus was Miss Cheryl Lee Ralph. We had a Black Mrs. Santa Claus. It was beautiful. That's right.
I finally see that.
That's perfect.
That's such a normal experience. It needs to be on the biggest stages, and that includes our elected officials. It's time we start seeing individuals from every background, not just what we perceive to be palatable anymore. And this whole idea of you're too far left, your aspirations are too lofty. why
Politicians
wouldn't they
should
be?
have lofty aspirations. This shit's driving me insane. Oh my God. My home
It's
base
so
is New York
weird.
City. And people are like, Zoran's not going to get anything he wants done. I'm like, well, neither has any fucking mayor ever before him. At least he's got good ideas. Like, I want
You have
pie
to
in the
try.
sky ideas. Yeah. Again,
If
this
I
is, I
listened
think,
to everybody, like if I listened to everybody's limitations, I would not be where I am today. It's in the fact that there have been enough failures for me to understand what that means, but you just need a few successes. And I'm hoping that it's time that people feel the need to push in that direction where what we want far exceeds what we conceive as possible or achievable within a certain term. Like, no. I want liberation now because that's what I was promised ages ago. As a citizen in this country, I am entitled to those same liberties as everybody else. And it seems radical for me to be accessing equitable treatment because of who I am. But that's the problem, that it seems radical when all I'm asking is to be left alone when I go to the restroom or to be able to get the treatment that my doctor prescribes me. They're the same issues everybody else has.
it is the same issues everyone else has. And I also just like to remind people when we talk about, like, the foundation of this country is disgusting at best. But the fact of the matter is that, like, our history is radical. We've done radical things left, right, and sideways. And individuals and groups of people have stood up for what is right against the largest military in the world, against the largest police systems in the world, against private prisons. And every single moment in our history, you can find a day like that. Every day, you can find somebody standing up for what they believe in and actually getting shit done. And so when people say, we can't do it, it's too big, it's too radical, I say, shut the fuck up. Yeah, we can. I'm sorry. I'm not going to be a politician, so I can cuss as much as
I like cuss too. It's fine.
Okay, so we are entering into our last portion, which we're going to do a couple of quick. We lost internet for like 5 hours yesterday. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm like in a major city, and the internet's just gone.
We take infrastructure for granted in a lot of ways, but there are people in my district that don't have consistent access to the internet.
We need to, like,
why?
We need it everywhere, and I don't know why it's not considered like basic. We need heat.
It should be a
hot
utility.
water. It should be a utility, and it should be run by the government.
Yep, totally agree. Totally agree. But socialism bad.
Everything must make money. Everything must make money all the time.
Completely socialistic society. Like, the capitalism in this country is such a perversion of what the purest form of capitalism is. Nothing would be too big to fail if we lived in an actual capitalist society.
That's the thing.
Banks.
We're propping up so much bullshit, and it's at the expense of us, the American taxpayer. We are propping up the crappiest shit. And granted, like, my background is in startups, so I have like a little bit of a chip on my shoulder about just institutions in general. And I'm like, Google fucking blows. Meta sucks. They haven't innovated ever. Like, they're trying to buy out fucking TikTok because TikTok did better than that. Like, because they're not innovating, because we're propping up mediocrity. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm a small business lawyer as well. Like, I'm a commercial lawyer. So, like, when people talk to me about, like, economics and, like, oh, you're a socialist or this or that, or like, oh, communism means this. And it's like, no. I work for a business that's my primary job.
Yeah.
Who does things in a far more ethical way than most others because it is a B corporation. I help founders start businesses that are run on far more ethical platforms than just the standard business savvy corporate, I'm going to have my exit in 3 years model, where it's like, you set up corporation, you set up cooperatives, you set up mutual aid organizations. Like, I help people do this every single day. Don't talk to me about economics and what's feasible or what is
right. And I'm like, literally, we like, it's just such a, I have this like essay forming in my head about, like, basically how we prop up, these mediocre companies the same way we prop up our mediocre politicians. And
couldn't agree more.
And people are like, oh, free market innovation. I'm like, we haven't had innovation in years because we're allowing monopolies to buy out other, like, exactly what you're saying, 3-year exit max. Or, like, I applaud Snapchat because they rejected a $5 billion buyout, I think 7 or 8 years ago from Meta. And they're still owned like they did IPO, I believe, but like they're
Yeah.
not beholden to fucking Meta. And people were like, "Oh, you're insane, you're crazy." And I think they IPO'd somewhere double or around double that. And I'm like, good for you, baby. I'm proud of you.
Yeah. Not everything has to have an exit in that way. Like there are ways
Yeah,
of running businesses that are not the investor like model of what you should be doing to be the most successful as far as revenue is concerned
yeah.
for the individual who is then selling the business. Like that. What if you ran a business because you wanted to run the business?
Or like we were talking about
Like
earlier, that it benefits your local economy and you're able to hire your friends and
exactly.
your neighbors and people who are skilled workers who like want to be close to their kids so they can pick up their kids after, after work and after school. Like it's,
It's crazy.
I don't,
Yeah.
it is a mentality issue that we have here too, though. You're right. Everything has to
Yeah.
like, people are like, why doesn't the post office make money? I'm like, where would that money go? Where's the money that like, but it's not a revenue making venture. Like,
This idea that government has to be efficient is coming from like a business sort of perspective of what efficiency means.
yeah,
Government by definition is inefficient if you perceive it in that way because it is a public service. It will spend more than it generates.
right,
That is its role, to provide services that the private sector cannot fill in a equitable way or in an efficient way because there's no market for it. There's no
right,
market to feed people who are, housing unstable or don't have jobs. You will not make money doing that. It is a
right.
good thing to do either way. I'm happy to spend the money there. Like
Literally, I'm like, if all of my fucking tax dollars went to pay for children or families eating or housing
Right.
the unhoused, fuck yeah, dude. Because again,
Right.
again, when we do that, when we give people their basic needs, they do great things. They do great
Yeah.
things. And it doesn't mean that we're not talking, like, again, I feel like I've had this conversation with everyone I talk to, probably not you, but when we talk about great things, maybe their name isn't in the history book, but maybe they raise a family and that's great for them. And that's what it is, right? Like we all have different definitions of great. And I
Couldn't agree
just, yeah, I'm like, okay, we got to wrap this up. We got to get to our last final. I could talk to you for hours. I would love to talk to you for hours. But our final group of things is just rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Yes or no, short answer. Are you more of a cat or a dog person?
Dog, 120%.
I get that. Are you morning or evening person?
I've become a morning person. I'm an evening person.
In an unfortunate turn of events. If you had to eat one meal every day for a year, what would it be?
No. What could I eat every day for a year? Probably sushi.
Oh, God, it's so good. Yeah. Like money was no issue. I'm like sushi every day for a year. What was the last book that you've read cover to cover?
Cover to cover, did I read? Oh, let me look it up because I don't remember specifically, but I only do audiobooks because I'm always on the move.
That counts. If
So I have
anyone
it right here.
thinks that's not reading, come fight me.
Oh, no. Yeah, hi, I'm dyslexic. It's more fun this way. What's the problem?
I'm also dyslexic and I love to read, but I also love to listen. But people are like, listening's not reading. Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm. Audiobooks. Yeah. Oh. And it's a beautiful contrast to like my interests, but down the drain, Julia Fox.
Hey, what's that about?
It's sort of autobiography. And she's incredibly inspiring individual because she's gone through so much. I love autobiographies for women specifically who have endured some form of hardship despite perceived privilege. And she is such a good example of that. And she is such a beautiful expression of what a true ally looks like. Same for Pamela Anderson. That's another one of my idols. But that was the last book. But I can understand how that might come off to some people. And it's like, well, it's fiction. It must be super intellectual. No, it doesn't need to be.
No, but that's also like why reading is fun, is you can literally transport yourself to anywhere and any person and any time. And it also builds empathy. Reading builds empathy. Okay, last question, and then we will wrap up. Your favorite thing about New Jersey, Congressional District number 7.
My favorite thing about this district, like it will be a little bit more than a word, but when as a politician,
It
not
should be. This is
long-worded.
not that we've moved past the short answer part. You can take as long as
Okay.
you want on this one.
So I'm somebody who, because of who they are, has not been very comfortable in a lot of their surroundings for a great deal of their life. The reason I moved to New Jersey full time is because during the midst of a lot of strife and when I was really in the depths of addiction, I came to New Jersey to stay with a group of people who I consider family, who essentially like helped bring me back on the road to recovery after rehab. And what I found in New Jersey was a community of individuals that was incredibly diverse in perspectives. And when I say diverse, I don't just mean like racial or ethnically, I mean perspective, because like the individuals that I was living with were like very conservative Catholics. And like I found myself in like this like densely populated Ecuadorian community. And I just felt more embraced here than I ever did anywhere else. And part of it was this sort of homey, straightforward grit that comes with people in New Jersey just being really real, but at the same token, sort of crass. And it gets a bad spin to it, but I found it really comforting because I had somebody who wasn't just sugarcoating and was like direct, but also really warm and kind. And that is a quality that sort of permeates New Jerseyans across the board, because what I see is like, we will go out of our ways to stop at all costs to let somebody cross the street, or like we'll line up before an exit for almost a mile. And it's just because you don't want to be the jerk that's cutting everybody off, or you don't want to like be rude. And it's almost obtrusive to be doing that. But it's also really lovely because you see the kindness in those actions. And so rough around the edges, but sort of warm and welcoming. And that's why I found a home here, because people just are that way here. And I think that's such a beautiful, unique thing.
That is beautiful. And I love it. So that's where we're going to wrap up. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation. I could talk to you for days and days and days.
Likewise.
Everyone, as a reminder, you should go follow Vale at VoteVale. Not.com yet, but it will be. When's it at VoteVale, VoteVale on Instagram and on TikTok.
TikTok. I'm on Facebook. I don't go on there. If you want to reach me, TikTok is probably easiest. But the website's in development. I had to like start fresh again because the concept went south. But don't be looking for too much until maybe January, because I'm being incredibly mindful on how I spend donor money.
Yeah.
And when I ask for it, it's going to be a more condensed timeline than others.
When is your primary?
In June.
Oh, okay. Cool.
We got plenty of time. Some people jump the gun and are spending a ton of money to be remembered. The 6-foot trans woman doesn't have that issue. You will remember her.
Love you. Thank you so much. If you've made it this far, thank you so much. Thank you for following The Foolish Optimist. You can follow us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, pretty much. We're going to be dropping new episodes every Wednesday, and you can watch the video episodes on YouTube. If you would like to, please give us a review, leave comments. You can also email us at thefoolishoptimistpodcast@gmail.com. If you see any really great candidates that I should be talking to, send them my way. Thank you.